Oi, everybody, welcome back to the channel. Please get some water and unclench your jaw. I barely have a voice, but we're going to power through today because we are looking at the 6.7.0 PTB, the official patch notes, not just the developer update. And I'm going to give you kind of my thoughts on the biggest pieces of it for the sake of brevity. So first off, the map rework. Autohaven Wreckers, specifically Blood Lodge and Gas Heaven. So Blood Lodge is basically being changed. They're changing the layout to reduce the concentration of low line of sight tiles. So in Blood Lodge, it's really easy to see almost all the way across the map, to see stealth killers coming from a mile away. Makes playing killer a lot harder on that map. So they updated the placement of the main building. Maybe that's more centralized. And then they say that they've changed the main building and the map's layouts, maybe for both. It seems to be applying to both. And then on Gas Heaven, they updated the car piles, the really long stretches of cars, so that they could be navigated through. This is kind of one of the hardest parts of playing killer on that map, is if a survivor runs around, you kind of just have to follow them. If you try to cut them off, they go. So you just have to waste a tremendous amount of time. They said they added a variation of the bus tile. I don't know if this is a new variation, and I assume this specifically applies to Gas Heaven. Blood Lodge already has this sometimes, I believe. And then they updated the maze tiles that had unsafe loops, updated empty fence tiles, updated gas station tiles to have a door open in the garage section, which is interesting because the garage right now is just a closed garage with 2 breakable doors, which makes it a little bit tough for the killer to defend. If the killer defends it, then they could waste a lot of it. It's interesting. So okay, this is interesting. So then updated the loops inside the gas station. So yeah, so Autohaven Wreckers getting rebalanced. Light killers. This has to do with flashlights. The nurse can no longer be light burned out of her blinks. The hag's phantasm traps are no longer removed by flashlights or flashbangs. Survivors can now remove them by approaching them carefully and then wiping them away, which I assume takes probably 2 seconds, same as like a trapper trap. The Wraith can no longer be light burned when cloaked. The Artist Crows are no longer affected by light. Crow swarms cannot be removed by light, and Dire Crows cannot be removed by light. And the Spirit can no longer burn the Spirit husks. This is a change, again, that I think is a little bit silly. I think that the flashlight interactions were interesting. Does it make or break the game? No. Does it make flashlights considerably worse? No. I bring flashlights into a game for flashlight saves, for blinds at pallets, things like that. If I happen to get a Wraith, if I happen to get a Nurse, yeah, that was like always an interesting thing. We could always talk about the balance of Nurse as a killer specifically, and the fact that flashlights had some slight counterplay to her. Maybe she needs more meaningful counterplay, but I don't know. This change entirely was silly. Is it the end of the world? No, not at all. All right, we're going to talk about Hillybilly really quick. These are the hard and fast numbers about Hillybilly's nerf, which is a nerf that doesn't make sense. Again, the community is a little bit... Anyway, so we're going to talk about, it's a buff and a nerf, and a lot of people are saying that the nerf actually hurts it more than the buff buffs them. So right now, the chainsaw generates less heat on the starting rev. If you rev the chainsaw as Billy, usually it gives you like a tremendous amount of heat, and then you build heat over time. So they're reducing that a lot. And then less heat added while revving the chainsaw in total, but more heat added during chainsaw sprints. So it seems like they're really wanting people to learn how to curve with Billy instead of just run across the map, which is neither here nor there. I think that that's not intrinsically bad. The problem is the Doom engravings and the Death engravings add-ons that a lot of people use to curve better with Billy have been pretty well hit here. The big deal about the Doom and Death engravings is it does take a little bit longer to charge the chainsaw, but it does reduce your heat. But your sprint speeds are much quicker. Now this doesn't really gut those. It changes the sprint speed on the Death engravings from 15 to 10%, and the Doom engravings goes down to 15 from 20%. It's not the end of the world, but it seems a little bit strange. Like, these are the de facto go-to add-ons for Billy. So like, are they nerfing them just because they're the de facto add-ons? Why not make other add-ons better? Why are there not more add-ons that focus on curving? Why is Billy's ability with regards to curving so ignored? Those are better questions. I don't know. This doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't think it's the end of the world, but I don't play Billy. That being said, I don't think you need Doom and Death engravings to play good Billy games. So I know I'm going to catch flack for that, but That being said, there are changes to the pig, some of their add-ons, Oni, the Nightmare, the Clown, Cenobite, and the Executioner. The big one here is that the Cenobite, the Lament configuration, will teleport if the Cenobite stands on it for 5 seconds. I don't know what the radius looks like on that. Do they have to be right on top of it? Can they be within 2 meters? I think right on top of it is a little bit... I don't know, but this is good. A lot of people are really upset about the fact that the Cenobite can literally just camp out the box with Hex Ruin and hold a game hostage. This is a good change. Now we're going to get to the big stuff. I'm going to go down a little bit, and we're first going to talk about survivor nerfs, because there are survivor nerfs and killer nerfs, but they are nerfs across the board here, for the most part. There are a few little like buffs on small perks, but that's about it. So for survivors, general healing. The survivor's heal interaction will now take, instead of 16 seconds, it will take 24 seconds. And successful healing skill checks, the bonus from that will not be 5%, but instead be 3%. And you may say, why would they nerf healing? What are they doing? It's been no secret for a while that with Medkit, Circle of Healing will make it inner healing, resurgence, reactive healing. That healing has been a thing where if a killer hits you and can't commit to you, then 7, 8, 9 seconds later, you're full health and you're back in the fray without much of a slowdown to the game. It's made it so that like Sloppy Butcher is nice, but not necessarily like super powerful, especially again for Medkit users. And it makes it so that like killers pretty well just have to bring gen slowdown to stall out the game as much as possible, because they have to commit to their chases in a lot more of a convincing manner. So from there, I'm going to go up, and I think the general healing isn't that bad. We'll obviously have to see it in action, but when it comes to the healing, I think the healing is nerfed because every single killer slowdown perk is seriously injured with this update, and I think that that is not necessarily a bad thing. Right, so Scourge Hook Pain Resonance is one of the de facto go-to, almost every killer brings it, right? So right now, Scourge Hook is if you hook someone on a Scourge Hook, a gen with the most progress regresses by 15%. It's a perk that you can get 10 uses out of if you're lucky. Yes, there's some RNG to the hook spawns, but the nerf is going to hit it pretty heavy. You start the trial with 4 tokens. The first time each survivor is hooked on a Scourge Hook, lose 1 token, and the generator with the most progress explodes, instantly losing 20% progress. So there's a number tweak here, 20% progress, and will start to regress. Once you have no tokens, Pain Resonance deactivates. The idea here is, one, it's an anti-tunnel perk now. The idea to get value out of this perk is to hook different people. The other thing here is I think personally that this nerf happens primarily because the ability for people like Spirit, Blight, Nurse to get continuous Scourge Hook value. And in some scenarios, if they can get 3 Scourge Hooks within a short period of time, gens just... like a whole gen can regress a very significant amount. Now in this case, it's quite a bit different, and it's going to be more of a backup perk instead of your primary slowdown perk. So I'm interested to see how this plays out. I think this cuts a little bit too deep, but we'll have to wait and see. As an anti-tunnel perk, I support anti-tunnel perks. I really do. So we'll kind of see how this goes. Now the other big nerf is to Call of Brine. After kicking a generator, this perk becomes active for 60 seconds. Current Call of Brine, not PTB Call of Brine, regresses a gen for 200% for 60 seconds. The new Call of Brine will regress a gen at 125% for 60 seconds. Currently, about 200% for 60 seconds is roughly like 22-23% of a gen. If you could run survivors off of it, or hook somebody, kick it, and it regresses for 45-50 seconds or something like that, then you've gotten a decent amount of value out of it. 125% is a very small amount. 125, I mean, realistically, your base kick is 100%. So 125 is hardly much on top of that, which means that Brine, gives you some info. Each time a survivor completes a good skill check on a generator, you receive a loud noise notification. This isn't too bad to have that info, but it's not nearly this Omega perk that was as strong as, it also became a de facto, and it's not quite in that space anymore. In my opinion, Overcharge was always stronger because it never had a cap. It would ramp up to 200% over time, but then it would just stay 200. But we're going to talk about Overcharge next. Now with overcharge, the current overcharge is you kick a gen, it starts at 75%, and over the course of 30 seconds would ramp up to 200% regression and would just continue to regress at 200% if unchecked. Made overcharge very potent. It's getting hit pretty hard. So now currently, after overcharge is applied to a generator, its regression speed increases from 85% to 130 over the next 30 seconds. So 130 is now the cap for overcharge. It makes it a lot harder for stuff to get done. Of course, it'll be 130% unless interrupted, which unlike brine is 125%, and then after 60 seconds it stops. It goes back to regular regression speeds. So overcharge is still stronger than brine, and we'll still see plenty of overcharge, but these slowdown perks, I need to make this super clear, these slowdown perks are going to have less of an effect on the game and less of a capability to stall the game out. You know, if I got ran off a gen and chased and somebody used overcharge and a survivor didn't touch a gen for 60 seconds, it was pretty brutal, but it's going to be a lot less brutal now. It's going to cost us a lot less time as a team now. Scourge hook going to cost us a lot less time. So we're going to see, you know, somebody using brine and scourge hook together or something like that. We're just going to see that these things are far less effective over the course of a match. Now, we're going to go back to our general healing. Healing was nerfed, right? And so in this way, a lot of people are going to be a little upset because like, oh, Survivor's already tough, healing's going to be worse. I think that these changes to slowdown perks are going to be sort of the mirror image of the healing, right? Because slowdown perks will stall the game less, there is a base mechanic change like healing that will stall the game a little bit more, right? I, as somebody who plays both sides, as a survivor, I don't know which I would prefer, but you got to kind of pick a side here. Do we want killers to keep bringing in overcharge, brine, blah, 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 which they will still continue to bring, but with less effectiveness, right? Or do we want to spend a little bit more time healing? Somewhere you have to spend some of your time. We just have to choose where. Now, on the other side of things, Boon Circle of Healing was nerfed pretty hard, right? Any survivors within the Boon Totem's range gain a 50% healing bonus to healing others. They can no longer heal themselves. This is a huge Circle of Healing change that I think has been a long time coming. I think Circle of Healing's existence has sort of hindered the game a little bit, and I think to some degree Circle of Healing came out and I don't know, to me, that sort of signaled this war of attrition where Circle of Healing came out, so now we need to buff all these other perks, and I don't know, it became this thing where like, okay, healing became really strong for survivors, so gen slowdown became really strong for killers, and we started inching our way up this totem pole, and I think that this patch is pushing all of it down. So that's how I kind of feel about that. It's a good change. A lot of people are going to say it's useless. I think the boon is still going to have value, but I don't know. To some degree, it's like will make it is also maybe just a stronger perk. Now, on top of that, Dead Hard was changed. Now, this is a different sort of conversation. Dead Hard activates after you've unhooked a survivor safely or unhooked yourself. So you could Deliverance and have Dead Hard. And then from there, it's pretty well the same thing, right? You know, once you Dead Hard, causes the exhausted effect for 40 seconds. Dead Hard then deactivates. So the interesting thing about Dead Hard now is, as a killer, your first 3 or 4 chases in a match, it's unlikely anyone's going to have Dead Hard. If you chase one person, they can't have it. They haven't unhooked anyone, so you can hook them without that fear too much, right? The other thing here is like the second chase, the third chase, unless they are the unhooker, right? But as the match goes on, then you have to start playing like we used to, where you're like, okay, do you have Dead Hard? I'm not really sure. You have to play around it a little bit. Here's what I think about this change. I think Dead Hard was mostly fine. As somebody who played as Survivor and Killer, it wasn't a free health state the way that everybody said that it was, right? It took timing, it took skill. It was very easy to just wait out a Dead Hard 90% of the time. Yes, was there some like opportunities where somebody would Dead Hard, get across a pallet and throw the pallet and there was nothing you could do? Yes. Were those really common? Not at all. Not in my experience, and I play this game as a profession, as a living. I just did not see that happening in that many matches, right? So that being said, is this nerf like too far? Is it too? I don't know. I think the idea of like unlocking the perk or the perk having a potency as the game goes on, I don't hate that idea, but I will say to all you killer players who hated Dead Hard so much that were really rallying for this change and you're rejoicing, that's awesome. In 6 months, if you're complaining about Lithe and Sprint Burst and Overcome being so annoying, at the end of the day, Dead Hard was the weakest between Sprint Burst and Lithe, and in some cases Overcome, because those gave you consistent value and consistently extended chases. Dead Hard did not. So I think we're going to find that maybe a lot more people are now irritated if Dead Hard falls out of meta and other things take its place. You only have yourselves to blame for complaining. That being said, we're going to go to the Medkit update, which is, again, the big part of the healing update. So we're not going to go over every single thing, but the general consistency here is that medkits are super nerfed. Everything has only 24 charges. A lot of the medkits now, so the Ranger medkit increases the speed that you heal others by 35%. This is a cut from 50. Emergency medkit has 24 charges, but does not increase the speed that you heal yourself. It only increases the speed you heal others, right? So the idea here is even with add-ons and even with medkits, you shouldn't be able to get more than 2 heals with a med kit. So what do I think about all this? Realistically, at the end of the day, I think that a lot of the killer slowdown perks were hit very, very hard, but healing and anti-healing has been brought up. And I think the idea here is, can killers exist in a game with Sloppy Butcher and Leverage and Thana, but not be Legion, right? Can a Ghostface bring in a Nurse's Call Sloppy and get actually a lot of value? Because previously they couldn't, because previously healing was like so easy, so fast. But now people staying injured is a dangerous choice, right? Like, healing might take a while. Should I stay injured? I think that it's going to change the landscape of the game, and I think it seems like an equivalent balance of some slowdown has to exist somewhere for killers. That's the name of the game. When both teams are racing against the clock, it has to happen. So where do we want that slowdown to be? Can we spread it across multiple areas of the game instead of just making kicking gens and hooking people be the primary slowdown? Can we make slowdown exist in other meaningful areas? And I know right now this seems like a lot. I would really love for us to test it. My big thing for you guys is to not fearmonger or freak out about these changes, because things can be changed, right? Things can come out of the PTB and be updated, right? So give genuine, honest criticism about what is happening, and not this update's bad or this update's dumb, but okay, why? Okay. If healing is rough right now, why is it too far? What makes it too far, right? You know, for Scourge Hook, for Brine, for Dead Hard, if you have feedback about these perks, why do you think they cut too far? Not just, well, gens fly. Because honestly, if you're going to tell me that gens just go too fast, I need to have more Scourge Hook value, I think there's probably a chase efficiency problem, right? It's a genuine opinion that you can have, but I think that doesn't really address the perk problem, right? You know, I think a more genuine criticism there would be, it's already an RNG related perk. I may not get value, or I may only down one person near a Scourge Hook an entire game. What do you guys think about the update? If you're going to give feedback, the only thing I ask is that you give genuine feedback. Don't say, oh, this change is bad because gens are too fast, or this game is so survivor. That's not feedback. That's not addressing anything. That's just idle, childish complaining. If Scourge Hook cuts too far, why? Why do you think that it cuts too far? Wow, it's because it's already RNG related, blah, blah, blah. Those things are more genuine criticisms, okay? I will be live on Twitch tonight. We'll be checking out the update, and we'll be breaking down the math of everything with regards to healing, to gen slowdown, etc. soon. So thank you guys for being here. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.